Welcome to Time on Track, a podcast where we navigate the high-speed racing and constantly changing storylines of Formula One. I'm Amarveer, and I'm joined as always by Ricardo. Ricardo, how are you today?
Doing good. Actually doing pretty good. It was a nice, eventful race. I think we have a lot to talk about. But of course, we'll start like we normally start. What are you wearing?
What am I wearing? I am wearing, this is a really fun one. The brand is called RH. This is a wooden watch. It's a wood case with a quartz movement on a canvas strap. Not a watch I would normally be like, ooh, I'm definitely getting that. But this was a watch that my wife got me on her trip to Thailand this year. It's a Thai brand made in Thailand, apparently. So for that reason, it's really special to me. And, you know, my wife's not exactly a watch person. So for her to see a watch and be like, that's cool. I think Amarveer would like that. I'm going to get that for him. Yeah, this is a special watch and I love it. And it's actually really comfortable on the wrist.
Nice.
Everyone talks about titanium being super lightweight. let me talk about wood. Wood is super light. Yeah, it's cool. It's simple, you know, time only, obviously. And yeah, can't complain about it. I love it. Nice. What about you?
I am wearing one of the first few samples we got in when they let us know that they were going to do this. The Spinnaker Secon 50 Fathoms.
50 Fathoms?
Yeah, 50 Phantoms. 50 Phantoms. So this can
you teach me about this watch? Because I know Spinnaker, I've heard of this, the 50 Phantoms. Obviously, this is a limited edition kind of thing. Teach me more, because it's the dial is so cool on this watch.
So it's a collaboration they started with Secon, I believe, last year, and they take one of their cases. In this instance, it's the Flus, and we basically decide on the colorway, but then he creates his like take on 50 Phantoms. 50 Fathoms is 50 Phantoms. So on the dial, you'll find like 50 ghosts like spread around the dial.
That's pretty cool.
And this year they introduced another version, which they call the no apparitions version. So it has no phantoms on the dial, but for every minute marker, you have a phantom. So yeah, and then right on the like 6 o'clock marker of the dial, you'll see like a sign like, think of like I ain't scared of no ghost with the like slash to it.
Yeah.
But like a version of that for this.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah.
That's, you know, in such a serious hobby, it's fun to see some people having fun. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's making its way around the office, so it was my turn. So I'm just
and they're cool. Limited, right? Like it's basically
the cool thing is, so they're limited, but they give you plenty of opportunities to get one.
Okay.
Like they had a first batch which was limited, and then they sold through that pretty quickly. We had a couple, and then what they just did a pre-order window which started yesterday for 48 hours, where you have your chance to get it again, but you're not going to be able to get it as soon as the first batch gets it. Like you'll have to wait like a little while longer.
Got it. And for those listening, yesterday is probably like 4 days ago at this point.
Yeah. The 28th. The 28th. Yeah, we are recording on Tuesday.
Yeah. Really cool. That's a really cool watch.
Yeah. But you know, that's the watches. Let's jump into the racing.
Yeah. Can I just talk about, this was a very sports filled weekend for me in a way that I'm not like, I like some sports, but I'm not like a sports guy. And we had an incredible start to a World Series. I don't know, Ricardo, where your allegiances lie, but if they're anywhere in baseball, you hate the Dodgers right now because we just ripped through the Mets, and now, as of this recording,
you're ripping through the Yankees.
We're up 3-0.
As of right now, they're up 3-0 in that series
after a walk-off grand slam on Friday night, which was remarkable.
Listen. I don't know. It's like the Yankees are just happy to be there.
I mean, it's not, you know, for a franchise like that, that's an underdog. for them to make it all the way to the World Series with no history at all. No one knows who the Yankees are around the world. It is great for them to be there.
Listen, they're happy to be there, and it shows. They are down, and like I'm so on the peripheries. I used to be a diehard Yankee fan, but honestly, ever since I kind of dived into watches and it's become my full-time job, like I'm on the periphery of most things, like a periphery of football, periphery of baseball. Like I'm just not fully invested like I used to be.
I hear you.
I think it's good for my health.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think in the past that wasn't the case, and there were many tough nights that my Jets would give me, or the Yankees, or many of the teams I'd root for, like even tennis, like certain athletes I root for just not doing good. So yeah, I've kind of taken a break from that.
So yeah, I agree. I'm also a fair weather fan, at least with baseball. Basketball also started this weekend. So former watch person JJ Redick is doing a really good job with the Lakers, in case anyone's interested.
Is that sarcasm or is that truth?
No, like he's actually the Lakers are moving the ball. They look like
Showtime Lakers.
They look like Ferrari now that Fred Vasseurs in charge. I'll say that.
Listen. Past few races, segueing straight into the F1.
There you go. You see, we can pull it off.
There you go. Past two races, Ferrari has looked amazing.
Yes,
it's almost like they're in the room, like deciding, okay, do you want the win? Oh no, I'll take it. Oh, how about you? Nah, it's your week this turn. Like it's your turn this week, so it's nice to see the team doing good, and it seems like they were doing good. Like they were just doing good from the moment the weekend started.
Agreed.
Like Carlos Sainz specifically.
Agreed. To the point where in qualifying, Carlos Sainz ends up in pole position, and his race engineer is like, "Great lap, Carlos," and he's like, two good laps." Because his first lap in Q3 was so fast that I think he would have been at least pole or close to pole on the first lap. And so he's like,
with gaps. Gaps. That's with gaps. Like these aren't like laps that are like he barely by like 1,000 for, or like no, he had like 200ths of a second up on the next person, and Carlos was just locked in. It seemed like McLaren was not quite there. Between like Lando just seemed like he was a little off. But one thing to note is they were sharing the car a lot this weekend. So between I believe they were testing new tires for Pirelli, and they were trying to get a lot of the juniors into the cars to try them out. So many of the people who did not let juniors drive in did well, a la Carlos Sainz. He got a lot of time in that car. Whereas people who let the juniors rock, Charles Leclerc, I believe Lando Norris, not so much. Not their best weekend. Their best qualifying. Let's just say that.
Right.
But it did lead to really spicy like starting lineup. We had Sainz on pole. I believe we had
Max in second,
Lando in third, and then Leclerc fourth. So basically
fourth. And then I'll just go shout out the Mercedes guys, Russell and Hamilton in fifth and sixth. And I'm going to put them in a pair because these guys were in their own universe for the entire race. I don't think anyone, maybe like a sniff of Hamilton's butt by Magnussen, but that's it.
Listen, there was 1, 2, 3. There was 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 gap. 4, 5 gap.
Yeah.
And then 6, 7, and that's literally what it felt like. But okay. Let's get into the actual start of the race. So
let's do it. Those
are our top fours. We also went over 5 and 6. And the race starts, for those who aren't familiar with Mexico, it's a long run to the first turn.
Yeah.
So a lot can happen. a lot can happen. And a lot did happen.
Yeah.
So we'll jump into some of the dynamics real quick. There was a crash, like heading into this first turn. And I'll set the scene because I love F1 TV, but for some reason this weekend, like the stream was just not not as good as it usually is. I feel like because maybe I had a lot of people around me in my time zone streaming at the same time, but
wait, this was happening to you too?
Okay, it wasn't just me. Good.
Like it was cutting out?
It was cutting out like every 5 seconds. It would cut.
Oh my gosh!
And then every another 5. So good. So it's not my Wi-Fi.
It wasn't every 5 seconds for us, but we were watching. I've mentioned it before here on the podcast. There's this great club out here called the Motoring Club where it's just a bunch of car stuff, but we watch F1 races there. And yeah, felt like every 15 minutes the F1 feed would cut out.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
F1 TV.
So this cut out like literally, like I'm on it's the formation lap. And I'm just like, I'm excited. I step out real quick to take care of something. I come back and I'm still watching the formation lap frozen. So I'm like, So I rush to my laptop, get F1 TV on, and I'm already seeing safety car. So I'm like, okay, what happened?
Spoiler alert.
Oh, spoiler alert. So I rewind, and basically this first lap incident involved 3 cars. And then there's so many different dynamics here. Me and Amrafir are going to just break down each one of them. So we're going to start off with Tsunoda.
Yes.
Tsunoda decided to be very aggressive on this first lap.
Well, let's set the stage first with the back of the field. So we had to finish out the starting grid. I think we mentioned Hamilton in 6th, Magnussen in 7th, Gasly in 8th, important name to know, Alex Albon in 9th, Hulkenberg in 10th. That's the points. And then Tsunoda was starting with 11th with his best friend, Liam Lawson, directly behind him in 12th. Oh, and Alonso breathing down their necks in 13th. So that's just to set the stage for what the grid is feeling like kind of mid-pack. Anyway, you were speaking about Mr. Tsunoda.
Mr. Tsunoda is clearly under pressure. He has someone new who just came onto the team, and it seems like that person is the heir apparent for the Red Bull seat, Mr. Lawson. And Tsunoda's just like, I have to prove something. You guys keep on going right over me. I know I'm short, but you guys keep going right over me and skipping me for this Red Bull job.
Yeah.
And he goes...
I can go on a long tangent about how I think that's insane.
Yeah.
But
save that
for the bonus.
We save that for the bonus. So, 5 lights are out. Tsunoda sees a small window of an opportunity. To his left, he sees Albon, and he's just like, okay. Mind you, this is going into, I believe the first turn is a right-hander.
Correct.
He's like, okay, there's like I see space on the outside. I'm going to go for it. And he just goes for it. And as he's going for it, Albon, who I truly feel for, doesn't really see this because guess who Albon is more worried about right now? Pierre Gasly on his inside.
Yeah, the guy in front of him.
So while Tsunoda continues to think, oh, there's a window, he doesn't put 2 and 2 together and realize, oh, but the guy I'm trying to pass on his left has somebody who's squeezing him more to the left towards me on his inside. So, of course, what happens? Tsunoda sees a window of opportunity, tries to brake a little bit later. His rear wheel catches Albon's front left.
Yeah.
And race over. Albon, same thing, race over. And who skates out of there unbothered?
Yes.
Unhurt is Mr. Pierre Gasly. Like, oh, there was an accident? I didn't even see that happen behind me.
Oh my gosh, I wish Okay, at some point I'm going to chime back in with this podcast, but like, oh wait, maybe I do have it up. Gasly's like comments at the end of the race. He's like, I'm very pleased with. So he finished in 10th.
Mm-hmm. Got points.
And he goes, it was a close call in turn 1. I felt some contact, and then I saw Yuki go off. So certainly quite fortunate to escape from that. Mm-hmm. Completely ignoring the fact that like maybe he's the one kind of squeeze. I mean, okay, so You're right. Yuki saw an opportunity on the inside, on the inside of Albon on the left side of the track. Albon's kind of just stuck in the middle. He can't do anything. So, but Yuki's on track. He's just on track limits on the left side, and he's about to make the pass.
But he's touching a little grass. He eventually touches a little grass.
Yeah, I mean, props to that. Like, if you're able to, I mean, I don't know, maybe not, because like if he was on that for maybe another millisecond later, that grass catches his back tire and maybe he spins and takes like 4 people out. Mm-hmm. But because Albon is being squeezed towards him from Gasly, that's where the contact happens. And Gasly, as he said, is very fortunate. Yeah. And it's a racing incident. Everyone's no penalties other than the fact that Albon and Yuki are now out of the race.
Yeah. It's crazy because you sit there and like poor Albon, who also has someone hot on his tail, and Franco Calpinto.
Yep.
Is just trying to have a good week, kind of reestablish his dominance, only to see his weekend end. Like, the 2 people who could least afford to crash are the 2 people who will crash immediately.
And you know what's interesting about that is, starting with practice this weekend, I started thinking about Albon and Tsunoda and thinking about they're feeling pressure. Colapinto clearly has a place in F1.
Yeah.
Liam Lawson is in F1. I have thoughts on him. But they're feeling the pressure. And then you saw Albon crashed in practice. Yuki crashed in qualifying. And it's like, clearly these guys are feeling the heat. They're the quote unquote established team members, and they're the ones with contracts for next year. But they have, not only does Albon have Colapinto breathing down his neck, but he's watching Sainz qualifying at pole, getting second in the last race. And, you know, that's your teammate next year. How do you feel as Albon, who's been racing with Logan Sargent for the last couple of years and kind of just cruising? There's no benchmark. You are the benchmark. He's no longer going to be no free passes there. And Yuki, I mean, nobody at Red Bull seems to appreciate Yuki because everyone keeps talking about, well, Danny Ricciardo's going to take Checo's seat. Liam Lawson's going to take Checo's seat. Valtteri Bottas is going to take Checo's seat. Like, but no one ever mentions Tsunoda as taking Checo's seat.
But here's the sad thing. This crash didn't help his stock at all. Didn't help his stock at all. So
for Tsunoda, right?
Yeah, for Tsunoda. Yeah. So it sucks. Like, we already know he keeps on getting passed up, but then you have this crash, and like, I don't see. Well, I already never saw any situation where he would get that seat. Just judging by the way they treat him.
Yeah.
Like, I like, there would have to be no drivers available for them to give him that seat. But man, it just sucks because he crashes, Albon crashes. Calpinto is just as able to be like, okay, I continue to make myself look good. I didn't crash. So even though Albon's crash was not his fault in the least bit, there's nothing Albon could have done to avoid that. He was meat in a car sandwich.
Yeah.
If he went right, he was gonna just crash into Pierre Gasly. If he went left, so he would have just crashed into Tsunoda even quicker. There was nothing he could do.
No.
So that was first crash. So, mind you, with this first crash happening behind us, we still have some nice juicy action happening in the front.
Yeah, really juicy action in the front.
And as this crash is going on, you immediately have Max, who had a good jump on the start.
Really, yeah, his launch, that guy, you know, he would have made Vin Diesel proud with that.
Yes. The car would have been up on two wheels and zzz, but
what's Vin Diesel's character's name in Fast and Furious?
Dominic Toretto. Come on.
Yeah, he would have been family. They would have gave him a Corona after that.
Oh my gosh. Oh, don't say that. I'm not even going to try to butcher the Spanish music, but you guys all know what Spanish song I'm talking about. Like when I start. I know. No. I'm going to butcher it, but I'm not even going to try. But
So great start by Max. Sorry, I keep
great start by Max. He basically gets on the inside of Carlos.
Yeah.
Carlos fights back, but is unable to stay on track for the turn.
Mm-hmm.
So he basically gets into the grass. Side note, if we're judging drivers on IQ, Carlos Sainz easily has the highest IQ on the grid. There may be it's a fight between him, Lewis Hamilton, and Fernando Alonso. Those, in terms of just IQ, those guys are high IQ drivers. Reason I say this is because something that a whole team could not realize last week, Carlos Sainz realizes himself and decides, I'm not even going to wait for someone to tell me to give the place back up. I'm just going to do it.
Yeah. So did we say turn one is a left or a right? It is definitely a right.
Right. It's a right.
It's definitely a right. Now that I'm thinking about Sainz's cut through. Yeah.
So cuts through the grass. He ends up ahead. Not even a radio message opportunity there's not even time for a radio message to come through to be like, hey, you should give the place back up. He immediately gives that place back up and slots himself in between
Verstappen
Verstappen and Lando.
Yeah.
Like, okay, Verstappen, I missed a turn. I'm going to stop myself in here and then bang. So that happens. Of course, the safety car is out. So we're
cruising basically for 6 laps.
For a few laps. And right now, the front of the pack is Max Verstappen, Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris, and Charles Leclerc.
Correct. Oh, and now Hamilton in 5th because he actually overtakes George Russell on the start.
Yes, so he does. Fun. Yes, on one of the turns. Mind you, spicy battling between those two all race long. All race long.
Those guys were in split screen mode playing a video game. They were just in someone's living room, just talking to each other, eating a bag of Cheetos, racing each other.
Pretty much. And one of the commenters that I've been listening to made a great point. He literally said, thank goodness Mercedes did not have a great car these past 3 years, because if they did, it would have been nothing but fireworks at Mercedes these whole 3 years. I could see those two guys would not be the best of friends if they had a decent car that could challenge for wins, because the way they battle each other, there's definitely enough there to make it toxic.
Yeah.
And it's kind of nice that Lewis is not going to be there next year, and someone else is going to be in there for that. But continuing on.
We get to see Leclerc, how he fares against someone like Lewis next year. That'll be fun.
We'll see. So I gave you guys what the starting grid looks like, what the basically first 4, 5, 6 drivers look like. We're under safety car. Safety car pulls in. Max has control of the pack, and he pulls off.
Yep.
And Sainz pulls off. So Max decides to go off. Max decides to pull off in the stadium.
So this 17 turns, he's turn 13, 14.
Yeah.
Which is the slowest part of the track.
Yeah. So he's making a turn and he just hits the gas. Thinking, okay, in the middle of this turn, I'm gonna lose Carlos and just keep on going.
It's a great place, by the way, if you're gonna off of a yellow flag, the idea is the guy in front gets to set the tone, and when he decides to go, that's when everyone else gets to go. but everyone else is bunching up through those turns. And so by the time he's cresting turn 17 onto the straight, he has a bunch of momentum. Everyone else is figuring out what the hell just happened. And so he gains an advantage down the front straight because he's got more speed going into it than most everyone else. So good move by Max.
Yeah. But I'm trying to remember. Carlos' move, was it on that lap or did they race?
So basically, again, yellow flag. So there's no DRS for the lap after the yellow flag. So that was, I think, lap 7, they pulled the yellow flag. So lap 8, there was no DRS either because it was the end of lap 7 that they pulled the yellow. So lap 9, so you had a full lap 8 of Carlos Sainz being within a second of Max Verstappen. So when lap 9 comes around, that DRS light goes on. That's when Carlos does spicy.
You guys can't see us, but basically it's Carlos. Carlos got spicy.
Yeah.
And Carlos really taught a master class on how you make a move on Max Verstappen. So the coming down the straight, honestly, watching it on TV, I didn't think he was close enough to pull that move. And I think Max Verstappen thought the same thing. Because when the move came in, Max didn't do what Max normally does, which is just like move under braking, block you, and keep you from making the move.
Yeah.
Max was just caught. It's one of the few times I've seen Max Verstappen caught flat-footed. Like just like what like here? And Carlos just sticks it up the inside on that first turn, makes the chicane, makes the next few turns. I mean, goes over the chicane like a little bit there, but still sticks it in.
For him to maintain control through the chicane, where he's on the curbs and like multiple wheels off.
Yep.
Like in the air off. Now I'm not talking about in the grass, like in the air. And for him to regain contact patch and actually keep going and stay ahead of Max Verstappen, that was incredible to me.
Yeah. And in that moment, we immediately knew, one, the pace of the Ferrari was impressive. But two, we were about to now get some more spiciness.
Oh, yeah. Because we have Carlos is gone in first.
Yep. And who do we have in second and third again now?
Yeah.
With tons of DRS and all the time in the world, Max Verstappen and Lando Norris.
Yeah.
So I think in that same lap, right? The same lap Carlos passes Max, Lando decides on turn 4.
Or was it was following lap.
Okay, following lap.
Things kind of settled down after.
Yep. Max is just like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
He's complaining about his battery.
I literally just looked at my notes to see what lap that was. And my note for that Carlos Sainz pass it says, Max just gave that up. And I think what I really meant was like, Max clearly did not expect that.
Nope.
I didn't expect that. Yep.
And honestly, to tell you the truth, I think, once again, shows the high IQ of Carlos Sainz. Like, he chose a time to make that move when Max just wasn't expecting it. And really, that's when I think you have to make a move on Max Verstappen. Like, it seems like if you give him all the time in the world to counteract your move, like, he's just going to get in your way and it's going to be even harder. Right. Like, he just said, like, Carlos just said, okay, while it's early, I'm going to do this now. Yeah. I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to go back and forth for a couple laps. No, we're going to take this now. And good for him.
Yeah.
And good for us too, because that left us with Lando Norris with pace hot on Verstappen's back. And oh man, if you ever wondered what Max Verstappen's thought process was when it comes to his thought process is everyone but Lando.
Yeah.
Everyone but Lando.
The Red Bull strategy is, I don't care about Carlos Sainz. I don't care about Ferrari. I don't care about Oscar Piastri.
Yep.
The only person whose math matters to me is Lando Norris.
Yep. And so next lap, I think the first incident was turn 4. Lando, which just continues to show his maturity, knowing how Max defends. Lando decided, okay, you know what? You're Mr. Late Breaker. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to break late too.
Yeah.
And I'm going to keep myself ahead of you at the apex. And I'm going to be right there alongside you when you make this turn. Which, of course, for Max Verstappen means, okay, I'm going to push you off track.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Lando took to heart this idea that whoever's ahead at the apex gets the right of way from last race.
Yeah.
And he was super late on the brakes. There was no way Lando was making that turn at turn 4.
Listen, if them's the rules, them's the rules.
Yeah, he's
if Max Verstappen could take advantage of those rules and be like, oh, I'm ahead at the apex, but I can't make the turn, but I'm still gonna keep my place, fine then. Lando's gonna do this. I could do that too.
That's what Lando's thinking. Yeah.
But the thing is, there was a good portion of that turn where if Max had given him room, Lando was making that turn.
You think so?
Lando was around him for quite a bit, like wheel to wheel, before Max just decided, okay, enough of this, and it just pushes him off.
Yeah.
Okay. So that happens. We're just like, okay, cool. Like, well, okay, we're about to see some good battling. That's great.
That felt decently egregious to me on Max's part. Like how hard he responded and kind of pushed Lando off the road.
Yeah. Like that was a hard check in basketball. That's what that was. Yeah, that was just like someone going for a pick and just a quick hip check. And the guys on the floor like, oh.
Yeah.
That's what that felt like. But still, they didn't like crash into each other, so the battle continues.
Right. They kept it kind of clean, I guess.
Kind of clean.
I don't know what I'm talking about.
Then comes turn 7 and straight torpedo mission.
That's why I wanted to say I thought that first turn 4 was egregious, and then I was like, oh my God.
Turn 7 was just like, we both about to crash. That's what turn 7 was.
Yeah.
The way Max positioned his car, how late he braked, that's the only thought that came across my mind. Like, that looked like someone trying to purposefully crash into the person next to him. And just be like, oh, well, I guess we're both out of the race.
It doesn't hurt Max Verstappen, and I'm not saying this is what he did, but it doesn't hurt Max Verstappen to take out Lando Norris and himself out of the points, because that's just no points. The championship battle continues.
Yeah. So no opportunity for Lando.
I'm not saying he did that.
I don't think he did that either, but I think it plays into how he thinks about it. I think he does. I think it plays into like
the math makes sense.
The math makes sense. Like he's just like, whereas someone else might be like, I don't know if I want to try that. I think in his mind it's like, okay, what's the worst gonna happen?
Yeah,
what's the worst gonna happen? Like we'll both be out. Like what's the worst that can happen? And like he has a lot more to lose than I do. And I think that's his thought, because that was so egregious.
It was
that was wild. Was wild. Like if anyone out there gets a chance, look at the helicopter image, like the high camera image. You see Lando trying to make this left turn, and you just see Max just literally drive him right off the road. Like I really felt like had Lando had an opportunity to brake on a dime right there, which is impossible because he still had a lot of momentum. Like Max would have just been like zoom right past him, and Lando could have just drove and continued the turn. That's how bad this one. Like Coda was bad. This was like 8-10 times worse. This was I think
Coda was defensible in a lot of
yes.
It's absolutely defensible, but like and what we were talking about last week is Max's MO is that he's going to do this. He's going to use all aspects of the track. He's going to have his elbows out. This was beyond. This was him going for it. And you were talking about the helicopter shot?
Yeah.
Watch the helicopter shot and then watch Lando Norris's onboard. Because it looks like they're in a 2-seater with how close Max Verstappen is to him.
Yeah, it's absolute madness.
Yeah. Oh, but you know what? Going back to turn 4, it's interesting. They're both, and this is showing kind of their mindsets going into this race, and if they got into this battle. Turn 4, we obviously know this idea of this, like, whoever's ahead at the apex gets priority. This is the rule now that everyone's been talking about. Rules. So Lando breaks so late into turn 4, and so does Max, that they're actually right up in Carlos Sainz's wing. Like, they were very close to hitting Carlos Sainz because Carlos was braking normally.
Yep.
And that, if you go back and watch that, like, that's a good reminder of like how late these guys were both breaking into turn 4 to try to gain the advantage. What happened at turn 7, turn 8? That was a completely different story. That was Max just going nuts. I don't think there's any way around that.
And what made this worse was, so all this happens, Max, while this is happening, Charles Leclerc is just like, oh, well.
Yeah, great for Charles.
Great for Charles. Sneaks up, gets second position. The Ferraris are leading 1-2 again. And the absolute madness behind them. With all of this, like, if I was Lando, I'd already be pissed. But then Lando has to sit there lap after lap after lap, knowing he has pace in his car and is being held back by Max Verstappen.
Yeah.
Lap after, and I feel for Lando, because I'm like, if that guy could have just did what he just did and almost took both of us out, should I even really try to pass him? Like, because there is such a high risk that if I try to pass him again, he takes us both out. That I literally have to sit here and wait until this guy pits.
That's what Max does, though, right? Like, that's why, I mean, we talked about this before. Like, that's the same as like a Michael Schumacher move. Like, you need to know if you're coming for the champ, you might get hurt.
Yeah.
And if that's the math that Lando has to take into account, Max has done his job. Obviously, I don't think he did his job the right way, but
he did his job.
And now he knows, Max probably knows a penalty's incoming because of how egregious that was.
Yeah.
And he could just sit and wait for that penalty to come.
Yeah.
And let the Ferraris take off.
Yeah. Because he doesn't care about the Ferraris. The only person he cares about, Lando Norris.
Right.
So eventually Max comes into pit. Lando is finally released. And Max serves his 20+ second penalty because he got 10 seconds on each one of those turns.
Yeah.
Which I know some people disagree with, but honestly, I think it evens out. Where I think some people would have been like, okay, turn 4, maybe that's a 5 second. Okay, cool, I'll give you that. But I'll tell you, turn 7 may be like a 20 second by itself. so it evens out. It evens out just fine in my book. Because turn 4 was bad, and maybe they overreacted there. Like, listen, turn 7 at 10 seconds, I think they underreacted. So listen, it just balances out. It should be 20 seconds regardless.
I've heard a lot of chatter about people talking about whether 20 seconds was appropriate. When they announced the 10-second penalty, the first one, I assumed that was for both incidents.
Yeah.
And I think Max's radio message at that time was kind of telling, because I think he assumed that was for both as well. And he just goes, huh, that's impressive. Like, he's like, oh, okay. Like, he expected a penalty, and they said 10 seconds. He's like, oh, impressive. And then the second 10-second penalty comes in, and he's like, are you kidding me?
Yep.
So I think it's the insight there that I gathered is that Max knew he messed up.
Yeah.
Max expected a penalty. 10 seconds he was kind of okay with.
Yes.
So 20 seconds was enough to rub the salt in the wound. And I think
which I think lets me know it was perfect. It was perfect. Because
there you go. Exactly.
Because if that's his reaction for 20 seconds, then I think you hit the perfect chord.
Yeah,
for that penalty.
He felt penalized.
Yes. 10 seconds, he was just like, I may just try that again if that's all I have. That's all I have to worry about. But 20 seconds, seeing him a little shook, that made a difference. But the race pans out. Like he finally lets Norris go to on his pit to chase after the Ferraris. Norris gets an opportunity. He gets on some hards. The pace is there. I mean, Norris just looks amazing. Like he starts really tracking down Leclerc.
Yeah, he's working hard.
I mean, he's on Leclerc's behind lap after lap after lap. And then he finally gets an opportunity off of Leclerc mistake, which honestly, I thought Leclerc was about to have a mouthful of wall on that mistake. A mouthful of wall.
Yeah.
I like for those that didn't see, they're making that last turn, about to go down the straight.
What lap was this? It was pretty late in the race, right?
It was late. It's got to be in the maybe the 50s.
Yeah,
I think it was in the 50s. So Leclerc is ahead of Norris. Norris is making a pretty decent charge. Like we all feel like eventually he's gonna get this done and pass him. But
I think it was lap in the 60s. I think it was lap 63 actually.
There we go.
Yeah.
But Leclerc is putting up a good fight, and they're just getting out of the stadium. They're about to make that last hurdle to the straight.
Yeah, it was turn 17.
Turn 17. And I don't know what happens with Leclerc. Maybe he puts too much gas and the rear just kind of says no mas.
I think it's his tires, man. I think his tires were just done because not only was he chasing Carlos.
Yeah. Yeah.
For
Carlos' message where he's just
I was about to say the Carlos message, like, what's he doing?
What's he doing? Like tell him to calm down. Like this is mine. Tell him to calm down.
Why is he setting fastest laps? We're in first and second. What's he doing? Chill, man.
I felt for Carlos there because to go from leading a race and having a win to like your own teammate like pressuring you.
Yeah.
He's just like, stop inventing. Right.
So he was chasing Sainz, using up tires, chasing Sainz, and then he realized he's got Norris chasing him down. And so now he has to work too, because Norris is not on tire management. He's on chase mode. So you have this double-edged sword this compounding events of tire management out the window, and now into that last turn you have no rears. And I think maybe he was on gas, but I think he was also just threatened and had no rear tires left.
Yep. And then my guy
that was my interjection.
Listen, he should have taken notes from the book of Russell, which we're going to get into in a few minutes. But no, he nearly spins out, and at some point, meters away from the wall, his car finally gets grip, and he immediately has to miss one of the promo cards, the promo billboards that they have on the side of the track. Which, side note, I find that stupid. I'm just saying, I find that stupid to put anything like that on the side of a track. But yeah, I digress. He barely misses it, I think, on its inside. Takes the dirt path all the way down. He's lost the position. Lando is free to now try to chase Carlos Sainz. But all that chasing really turns into nothing. Carlos had a good, decent lead by then. And I think towards the end, all the pace that Lando was putting in those tires to trap Leclerc, his tires probably started to fall off also. So we end up with Carlos Sainz taking the win. Lando Norris in second place, and
Leclerc in third.
And in fourth and fifth, we have the Mercedes duo, who, for what it seems like, maybe 20 or 30 laps, were going at it.
Yeah. There wasn't as much focus on them in the race as I kind of wanted. This race is a great example of when it's awesome to dual screen, where you have the race on your TV, and then on your phone or iPad or whatever, you've got like an onboard so you can watch a battle. Because Hamilton and Russell were having some fun.
Yeah, like for lap after lap, Lewis once within DRS, like and I wish I had the split screen, because the only way I knew the battle kept on going on was I was looking at the splits
right
on the side, and I kept on seeing them go for like at 0.5. Once I knew they were like 0.793, I knew, or 0.8, I knew they were coming out of the stadium. Because for some reason, Russell gets on the gas a lot quicker coming out of the stadium and is able to open up a gap on Lewis. And then with DRS, you see it start to turn down to 6, 5. Yeah. And I know if Lewis doesn't hit like 2s, he's not about to make a move. So that's how I was paying attention to the battle until they would cut to it. And you saw, like, and the announcer said this, and it was so true. Like, that's how a battle should be.
I mean, they were gentlemen racing.
Yes, but still racing. Like still Lewis trying to find an opportunity to cut on the inside, outside. Lewis faking one way, going the other. Like, it was strategic racing, and it finally just got to the point where for Russell, like, I think Russell had to. No, Russell didn't come in. Russell.
No, it was just a tire management again. Like, Russell just didn't have tires, and also Russell was working off of, because of his crash, I think in Austin. He's working off of an aero package from like Miami. Yeah, like he's on the old package, whereas Hamilton was on the new upgrades, quote unquote. So Russell should have had the slower car.
Yeah, but even though Russell had newer tires, which was like, he had newer about 2 or 3 lap old tires, but he still put up a great fight. It was great to see them both battle it out. Lewis eventually gets ahead of him, so he locks in that 4th position. Russell gets 5th. And who's there in 6th? A ways away? Max Verstappen.
Pretty impressive for Max to, after serving what ended up being a 27-second pit stop with the penalties, to make his way back to 6th.
They brought him in at the right time, because by the time he was done with that penalty, there was still a ton of cars in front of him who still hadn't pitted. So no matter what, he was going to gain, and this was a one-stop race. So he wasn't coming off those tires at all. So he gained a ton of positions from that. Yeah. Was able to salvage it. I think in the championship, he lost 11 points in his lead. And once again,
he's ahead by 47 now.
Yep. I still have the nail coffin, and I'm still ready to be, because until he is completely out of a race, and Lando Norris has an opportunity to make maybe 20, 25 points on him, this is going to be very difficult to do with 4 races to go. If Verstappen continues to maintain that type of a distance from Lando, which is like 4 or 5 like drivers between them, it's not happening, Captain. It's just not happening. It's not happening. So unless like Max just like takes a bunch of penalties or whatever at Brazil, and it's a large lead, I don't see this happening. Like every race that goes down, like right now it's what, 47?
47, and you've got 4 races and 2 sprints.
If it's not below 30 after Brazil, it's over.
Yeah, I think Brazil's going to be the watermark. That's when we know who wins this drivers' championship.
If it's not like 29 or 30 by the time we step out of Brazil, because there's also a sprint at Brazil. If it's not 39 or 30, this is done. This is done. You're basically asking a guy to put up like 30 points, and like, which is okay. 30 points over the course of 3 races, that's okay. But if it's anywhere in the high 30s, 40, it's over. It's over. So yeah.
Can we take a moment to talk about the constructors' standings? I feel like in this era of Formula One, and especially in the Drive to Survive era, so much focus is on the Drivers' Championship, and rightfully so. But the Constructors' Championship gets kind of thrown to the side in a weird way. And I understand that's probably because Red Bull's been dominant for a good amount of the last 20, 15 years. And they don't have a car, even though Adrian Newey is developing their Red Bull car right now.
Mm-hmm.
But for me growing up, Formula One, it was about the team. Like, okay, I grew up in the Schumacher era, the Felipe Massa, Kimi Räikkönen, like those kind of guys. But McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes, like Lotus, like these were important, just as important to me as who won the drivers' championship. And I feel like people are saying, "Oh, the season's over now." Well, drivers' championship, I think, has been over for a while, but I think people are coming to that realization as well. But we have a dogfight for the constructors' championship. Yep. It's still up for grabs between McLaren, Ferrari, and Red Bull. Yeah. I think Mercedes has dropped out enough that they're no longer competitive. But man, you can't discount what this would mean for Tifosi, for Ferrari, to win the Constructors' Championship.
Yep.
Or McLaren either. This is huge.
Listen, if I'm McLaren and I walk out of this year, I don't have the drivers and I don't have the constructors, it's a failure of a year. Plain and simple. This is a failure of a year. Failure.
Coming into the season, there's no way you would say that, but I understand why you're saying that now.
Complete failure. Complete failure. Coming into the season, okay. But to go from, I think, like after the summer break where you were like, oh, like not only do they have a really good chance of getting the constructors, like there's a chance they might get the drivers too. So now we're like, okay, he really needs to do something to get the drivers, and Ferrari might sweep in here and get the. That's a failure.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, that's a failure in my book, and it just shows how words come back to haunt you. Everything goes back to Hungary.
Yeah.
Everything goes back to Hungary.
Think of your teammate, Lando.
Oh my gosh. When you told that man.
You're going to need him.
You're going to need him.
Well, he's out in Q1 in Brazil, in Mexico.
We're going to have plenty of opportunities. Plenty of opportunities. Unbelievable. But two things of note.
Yeah.
That before, we start talking about the next race. One, Haas had a very good race.
Yeah. Talk about constructors.
Haas is out here looking good. Looking like a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich. Looking good. So that's one thing. We definitely want to give props over to Haas.
Yeah, absolutely. They had Kevin Magnussen and Hulkenberg finish in the points. That's great.
Here we go. Yeah.
And it
was great. Great
potentially
weekend
could have had that happen in Austin too. But
and I think they're fighting for 6. Or they're in 6.
They're in 6. They're so there's a fight between them and the Visa Cash App Red Bull team.
Yep.
But they're 10 points ahead of VCarb right now.
Yeah.
Between 6 and 7.
With 3 races to go, that's a pretty good lead, especially for a midfield team. So that's them. Other thing is Checo. I don't think since we started recording this podcast, I don't think we've mentioned Checo's name once.
I mean, for the Mexico Grand Prix, that's pretty incredible because this is supposed to be his race. This is his hometown race. I went to the Mexico Grand Prix last year, and there was a moment where I stepped out into the baseball stadium as Checo was coming around for his parade lap, and I had the entire crowd behind me, and they roared. Like, I've never seen that kind of reception in any motorsport event for anyone. So, yeah, sad day for Mr. Perez.
Yeah.
Sad season for Mr. Perez.
Very sad season. And he had this moment there with Liam, which you could tell was personal. That was personal. That wasn't like, oh, we're gonna battle. No, that was personal. Like,
what made you think it was personal? Was it Liam Lawson flipping him off when he was passing him at the end?
I think because he made it personal, then Liam Lawson decided to flip him off. Which brings something like, I just want to like talk on it for like a few seconds. Like, I feel like there's got to be a better way to evaluate talent without making it seem so obviously disrespectful. And like, Liam Lawson, like the way he comes off, it just comes off as if someone who's been promised something, and he's just like, "You're in my way."
Yeah, it does feel that way. I don't enjoy
stench. There's a stench. There's an odor.
Yeah.
Of that when I see him when he talks, like this whole battle with Checo, it just comes off him. It oozes off of him this sense of entitlement. Like, I've been promised this. This is mine.
Mm-hmm.
I need you to hurry up and finish so that I can take it.
Yeah, it's not a question of Lawson's talent, but man, his character is interesting.
Yeah, very.
It makes me miss Danny.
Yeah. But interesting enough, last little tidbit before we start talking about next week's race.
Mm-hmm.
There are rumors going around, especially after this great race by Carlos Sainz, that him at Red Bull is still an option on the table.
This is crazy.
Red Bull trying to find some way to make this happen. Some way to make this work.
I need to understand this more, because Carlos is scheduled to drive, has a signed contract to drive for Williams for the next 2 years at least.
Yeah.
Red Bull has Checo signed up. Obviously, they have their own internal teamworks and minors and majors and whatever. But you're saying there's a chance that Sainz ends up on Red Bull next year.
There's still a chance. That's what the rumor is saying. Like, there's still conversations. I think Sainz would love it. He's not gonna sit there and scream it to the mountaintops. I think Sainz is a nice enough person to be like, can't wait to drive for Williams. It's gonna be a great opportunity. But if that opportunity at Red Bull opens up and they offer him, I don't see how Sainz doesn't say, okay, yeah, I got to go. Like, how do we buy me out? How do we do this? How do we, what do we do here?
Yeah, and Williams probably from a contract perspective is okay with that, because they found something in Colapinto.
Mm-hmm.
And James Vowles has said multiple times, they're not here for this year or next year. They're looking at 2026. That's where their focus is. So 2025 is just going to be about data collection. It's not about winning races. So if you have Colapinto collecting data for you, gaining experience, and potentially winning races, that bodes well for them in 2026. You have a young driver that could be very talented versus Carlos Sainz, who's very talented but is not a young driver anymore. So yeah, this could be a win-win.
Yeah,
you might be convincing me that this might be on the table.
Listen, so those are the storylines for the Mexican Grand Prix. Next week, as we've already discussed a little bit, we will be going to Brazil.
Historic
and my
Interlagos.
favorite track, Interlagos. There's something, I love a straight that's not a straight.
Oh yeah.
So there's something
you like
about
an uphill banked straight.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Like I like Interlagos, like going into that straight, like that looping turn. So much action happens there. There's so much build up. DRS open, getting closer to the guy in front of you, trying to make the move before that first chicane. Like, there's so much about Brazil I love. And then immediately getting you an opportunity to make the move again. Like,
yeah.
Like, I think of 2021 and how amazing that race was. Like, with everything surrounding, like, the storyline, the penalties, Lewis winning the race, coming back from, like, the moves that were made, where they were made, like, that track has such lore for me, and I love it, and I can't wait to see the race at Brazil.
It's one of those tracks where it's like, you need to connect turns, like the whole S's section and everything leading back to the straight.
S? Yeah.
Like you have to get those perfect to have the speed into the back straight or the front straight.
Yeah.
And just the elevation change, slight banking kind of coming out of 15 into turn 1, the crazy turn 1 into turn 2 is wild too. And then I was watching the highlights again from last year. The start of this race, it gets tight going into turn 1.
Yep.
So funny things happen.
Yeah, a lot of dive bombing. A lot of dive bombing. But that's going to be interesting to see. But, we can't wait for it. But that puts a wrap on this week's episode. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. This is Ricardo. You can catch me on my Instagram page, Ready, Set, Watch. Albert, you can catch him on his Instagram page, Meta World Cool. We can't wait for this race. We'll be tuning again after the race to kind of let you know our thoughts, see if the championship battle is actually done, or if Lando was able to get a good amount of points from this weekend. And there's a lot going on. Sprint race, there's a lot going on.
This is a big chapter for the season.
Yes.
Very
indeed.
exciting.
But with that, just want to tune out and say thank you so much, guys. We'll catch you next time.
Adios.